Jay here, Stretford, Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm live in the studio, so come on, you know what to do by now. Get involved in the comments and the chat, and let us know what you think about all the latest Manchester United news. Give us a shout if you've got any Manchester United news. RUITK, because some of you are. We've got a load of stories to get through. We're going to be talking about Ten Hag, obviously. We're going to be talking about Paul Pogba, obviously. We're also going to be asking, or not asking, we're going to tell you why the United End of Season Awards got cancelled. The Player End of Season Awards got cancelled. I think you probably know that, don't you? Because, you know, that would have been a bit embarrassing. Can you even spoil your ballot on an end-of-season award vote? I don't know, but that's how it feels, doesn't it? It feels like none of them deserve it. Anyway, we'll be getting into all that, so make sure you are commenting. We'll start off with Dean Henderson, because the news last night was that he was on his way to Newcastle. There was stories doing the rounds that Newcastle were trying to sign him either on a permanent deal or on a loan. It looked at one point like it might be a permanent deal, with obviously Newcastle absolutely minted. They can certainly afford Dean Henderson. United apparently willing to let him go, which was a little bit of a surprise, if I'm being honest. Some people thought that maybe he would fit into an Ten Hag system, or that maybe Ten Hag would at least want to have a look at him firsthand before making that decision. But it appears not. It appears that Dean Henderson is surplus to requirements. However, things have changed this morning. Finally, I think it's Luke Edwards, who writes for The Telegraph. He covers a lot of Newcastle stuff. I can't be doing with him, but he knows his stuff with that side of things. He said MUFC will not be signing goalkeeper Dean Henderson anytime soon. You kind of sort of believe that when I hear it from him, because like I said, he does cover a lot of Newcastle. Now, it doesn't mean that the door's completely closed, just means that it's not likely to happen anytime soon, as it says. There was also talk of, I think, Bournemouth were interested in him as well. You would expect a lot of clubs to look at Dean Henderson because, okay, he's not had a great year of it at Manchester United. He obviously had COVID, didn't he, at the beginning of the season. He was, for a time, before this season, or last season, I should say. Oh, no, this season. Let it get right. It's still not over, is it? Unfortunately. He was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's first choice. Then he got COVID. Then, obviously, Ole got sacked. And he's never really had a look in since, due to, you know, Ralph Rangnick not fancying him, David De Gea having an upturn in form, those kind of things. But he's still a very good keeper. He's only 25, I think. He had that fantastic season, didn't he, at Sheffield United. Forced his way as well, let's not forget, into the Manchester United side. And that's no mean feat for a young goalkeeper, especially when you've got David De Gea in front of you. To do that, and he did that, he was getting into the England squad, and then things have gone a little bit south. But he's still got a lot to offer, and it looks like there's a few clubs interested in him. But as of yet, or as now I should say, Newcastle United are not sort of leading the charge, if you will. I'll get in some of the comments. Shazoo says, Hendo should get a chance. Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that he didn't get a chance. Steve Clifton says, any thoughts on Michael Knighton interview, Jay? Yeah, Michael Knighton did an interview, I think, with John Gubber. I know Johnny does like all the historical United stuff. And he was talking about Manchester United potentially being for sale, all that sort of stuff. We spoke to Kieran Maguire from The Price of Football, who said something similar, that he wouldn't be surprised if common sense prevailed, but I don't know if you can use common sense when it comes to the Glazers. And they actually sold because the sort of share prices are flatlining. He said they're not bringing in the commercial revenue that you would expect from a club like Manchester United, and were being left in the shadows by other clubs as well, particularly Liverpool. He said that Liverpool, you look at the size of City. City aren't as much of a threat commercially as Liverpool, because City is still a relatively small club in the sort of elite terms. They're not got the fan base that the likes of United, Liverpool, and you know, Real Madrid and Barcelona have. But Liverpool do have that. Despite only winning one title in 30-odd years, they've still got a massive fan base. So when they start having success on the pitch, which is what they're doing now, that increases their revenue, which is actually bad for Manchester United, commercial revenue. So we'll have to wait and see what happens on that front. But I've spoken to Michael Knight myself, just on Twitter messages, and we're hoping to get him on the channel soon. So we'll keep you posted on that front, as always. Patrick Cassidy says, beautiful rainy morning, ain't it? Economy Katsu says, sell Pogba to Newcastle. We're going to have a Pogba update, and I'll get to that a bit later on. But yeah, I mean, Newcastle like the new sort of Chelsea. Remember Chelsea in 2003 or 4, was it? 2003? I think when they were just buying everyone. They just went mad, didn't they? They were buying players like Mutu and Glenn Johnson and all sorts of just randomers. And it was just like, oh, we've got loads of money, quick, let's just spend it all on as many players as we can. And unfortunately for us, they managed to sign a few gems during that time as well, and eventually get a manager who knew what he was doing. And it's now like that with Newcastle. They've got loads of money. They obviously want to kick on. They've done the hard bit, which is staying up. Now they want to sort of challenge. So I do expect a lot of players to be linked with him. I think some United fans are sort of just trying to get rid of everyone there, saying let's sell. I've seen people saying let's sell Maguire to Newcastle. That's not going to happen. But yeah, wouldn't be surprised if Newcastle are busy in this transfer window. Let's talk about Mike Phelan, because we've had sort of all these rumours, stories, reports about the backroom staff at Manchester United. Erik Ten Hag's obviously come in. Steve McLaren, as was broken by our very own Stephen Howson, is joining his staff as well. There's, I think, Mitchell van der Gaag, is that how you pronounce it? Yeah, I'm getting a nod from Joe Smith, so it must be right. He's joining as well, which that sort of leaves the question mark about what's happening with Mick Phelan. Is he going to become the forgotten man? And it says his future's uncertain because of the fact that Erik Ten Hag is adding all these people. They also, it looks a little bit like that Steve McLaren can sort of fill the role that maybe Mike Phelan did, in terms of being that sort of connection between the players. He knows the Premier League. He's got that experience. He's worked under Sir Alex. Do you still need Mike Phelan and Steve McLaren and Mitchell van der Gaag and whoever else is part of the backroom staff as well? I'm not so sure. It looks like he may not. So it looks like Mickey Phelan could be on his way out of Old Trafford. As always, we'll keep you posted. It's a bit of a funny one with Mike Phelan, isn't it? I think if he left, I don't think anyone's going to go, oh my God, Mike Phelan's left. The wheels are going to come off. What are we going to do? This is a nightmare. But I still think there's a certain amount of respect for him. I mean, like I said earlier, he was part of that successful period under Sir Alex Ferguson. He's an ex-player as well. I think you always get a little bit of, it wasn't like he was, a legend as a player, but he won some trophies. He also won the most important trophy in the history of association football, the European Cup Winners' Cup, with a 100% pass completion rate in the final, in case you're wondering. But I think if he was to move on, people would be like, okay, yeah, thanks for what you've done. Time to move on. We'll wait and see, though. Maybe there is still a role or a future for him at Manchester United. Let's hit that like button. We've got 67 likes and almost 800 people watching. Let's get to 200 likes as well. Patrick Cassidy makes a very good point here. He says, Mike Phelan is bald. I'd keep him. Very good point. Well made. Mihir Mathur says, Rene in. Yeah, that's another one doing the rounds, isn't it? The rumours about Rennie Merlinstein. Is he going to be joining the Manchester United backroom staff? We had him on the podcast, on the Brew, about a year ago, I think it was now. It seems ages ago. It was one of those people, Rennie Merlinstein. I've interviewed him a couple of times, and he's just quite softly spoken. But when he speaks, one of those types of characters, you just listen intently to what he's got to say. He's just got an air about him that you can understand why he's had so much success as a coach when he was at Manchester United and beforehand as well, and that he was able to get the best out of players. He had a big big help for Cristiano Ronaldo, helping develop his game during those sort of formative years. And you can understand why, because he's such a sort of well, softly spoken, but sort of intelligent and insightful person. And I think that once you meet him, or once you hear from him, you don't have to meet him, you can hear what he's got to say. You can see why he'd be a good addition to the Manchester United backroom staff. Obviously, been there before. Again, part of a very, very successful period under Sir Alex Ferguson. A little bit different to Mike Phelan. You might go, well, what's the point getting rid of Mike Phelan if you're going to bring in Rennie Merlinstein? I think Rennie Merlinstein is more of a coach and a tactician than Mike Phelan was. No disrespect to Mike Phelan. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. Gary Towers says, Rennie knows his stuff. Bala Christian says, Jay, is the journalist Patrick Berger, former Liverpool player? Yes, I used to say that all the time when we interviewed Patrick Berger from Sport 1. I used to say it's not the former Liverpool player. We'll be talking to him again soon in the summer. We're going to be talking to a lot more journalists over the summer as well. We're going to bringing back the Tier 1 Transfer podcast, keeping that every week. So we'll be talking to all the best journalists out there, the most sort of reliable sources as well, and giving you the updates on Manchester United's transfers, because I expect and I hope there's going to be a lot of transfer business, because we know that we need to bring in quite a few players. I don't know how many we're going to bring in, but you expect at least 3, hopefully a bit more than that. And there's obviously going to be a mass exodus, shall we say, of players going, just because players are out of contract. So, as always, we'll keep you informed on that. Patrick Cassidy says, Rennie reminds me of Vic Reeves, something about him. It's a bit of a random one. Dale Gibson says, get Rennie to shave his head and then Ten Hag will have him. Fair enough. I mean, it's one sort of option in it. We can always try that. Just have a completely bald backroom staff. Don't think it's ever been done before. Could be a record breaking that. Yeah. Shazzy says lots of links about Victor Osimhen. Yeah, we've seen this over the last few days. I think there was the last sort of rumours doing the rounds was that maybe United might be getting priced out of him. There was sort of talk, I think, a couple of days ago that we were looking at him and that he could be a sort of an option, but there was a quote, I think, around 110 million euros for him, which is just, I mean, that's not going to happen, is it? Let's just be honest. United, that's almost 3/4, if not more, of United's transfer budget. We're not going to go and spend that all on him. So I think that's probably dead in the water. But this is the silly season now with transfers, isn't it? We're getting linked with so many, and some of them will be accurate, some will be true. But I don't know about that one, to be honest with you. But as always, if we hear anything, we'll give you a heads up, because who knows. Right, let's move on. Shall we talk about, first of all, we'll talk about the Player of the Year awards, because this is sort of, it's kind of the least surprising story, isn't it? It's like United have cancelled their awards gala, basically because I think they're just embarrassed about the whole situation, to be honest with you. It's like we've had a shocking season, a season that at one point looked like we were going to be challenging for the title and, maybe doing bits in the Champions League, and it just sort of, it's just whimpered out into nothingness, hasn't it? So the latest story, I think this came from, I think a few people have been covering it. I think Dave McDonnell might have had it in the Mirror. It's just basically saying that there's not going to be an end of season awards like they usually do. You remember you've seen it all, haven't you, before? Do you remember the one where it was Jose Mourinho gave Scott McTominay a vase that he went and made someone go out and buy because we got fed up of giving David De Gea Player of the Year awards? It looks like if there had been one, I think there's still going to be an award, but not a ceremony, that Ronnie will probably win it. You think so, wouldn't you? But it's not been a great season for Manchester United. So I think the players have sort of said, let's not do it. Let's not all, be filmed and televised, get on stage collecting awards or talking about a season where it's just been a massive disappointment. Do you remember that one on MUTV? Was it last year, a couple of years ago, with Jeffrey Boycott, where they interviewed him and he just started like laying into Wally? It was like, I think was it Mark Sullivan, whoever it was, doing the interview. And like MUTV, it's all like sunshine and rainbows, isn't it, about how wonderful everything is and how positive everything is. And he interviewed Jeffrey Boycott, and he was saying, like, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as a manager, and he comes from Fergie, background working under Sir Alex. You think he's going to have a success? And he just started saying, no, I don't think he will. And, what's he done in the Premier League? He got Cardiff relegated and all this. It was mad. But yeah, we're not going to have any of that this season, because we're not having one, and rightly so. I think that's best for all concerned, isn't it, really? Because it would have just been a bit embarrassing getting up on the stage and applauding someone who's helped the team get to 7th. Let's move on to Paul Labille Pogba, because there's always a story in there. And apparently, this has been doing the rounds this morning, that he's not going to play against Palace, even though he's fit, because he fears he's going to get a bit of grief off United fans. I mean, it is a bit sad, the way this is all sort of ending with Pogba. We saw it, didn't we, a few weeks ago at Old Trafford. I forget which game it was. Was it Norwich? Thank you, Alex Bagley. The Norwich game, where he got booed and then he got told to F off. And then he sort of stopped in a tunnel and put his hand to his ear, and that infuriated a lot. I didn't go to that game, funny enough. I wasn't there for once. And my sort of WhatsApp chats were going mad and everyone was sort of fuming. And I was like, I didn't know what he'd done at first. And then when I saw it, I just thought, I don't know. The thing with Pogba is you can't win no matter what you say. If you say, he's not doing well, he's not good enough, you'll get people going. And what you're on about is our best player. If you say he's a good player and he's doing well, people say he's not good enough. What's the matter with you? He's a terrible signing. I think we're somewhere in the middle. I think Paul Pogba is a very, very good player. I think we bought him without a real plan for him. I think at times he could have been better in a Manchester United shirt. I don't think he's shone in certain big games. I look back to the 2018 FA Cup final and the Europa League final last season as well, in two particular games where I expect Paul Pogba in those games to stand up and be counted. It didn't quite happen for him. There's other games though, I know it wasn't like it was an amazing game, but the Europa League final in 2017 obviously got his goal, albeit a deflected one. People keep going on, don't they? They keep bringing up the game at the Etihad where we stopped City celebrating in front of us. I know it's small time, but it was an important win because it would have been rammed down our throats, wouldn't it? All those fireworks and everything. But those games seem a little bit few and far between. And yes, you can argue that perhaps he should have had a proper DM behind him more often than just Nemanja Matic for a couple of years. You can argue that some of the players surrounding him haven't been good enough. You can argue about the fact, we have had managerial changes, we've had system changes. He's been playing deep, he's been playing on the left of a 3, he's been playing as a 10, he's been playing as a left winger. At one point, Ralf Rangnick this season, he almost had him as a striker. Do you remember when Marcus got dropped and Rangnick said it was between him and Pogba? And I remember Pogba at one point looked like he was sort of the furthest forward of our front 3. So there's a lot of sort of mitigating circumstances, but ultimately it hasn't worked out, and he has been a bit underwhelming. I don't think that's the most sort of revelatory comment there, to be honest with you. I've been disappointed. I was quite giddy when he came back. I remember him in the youth team in 2011. One of the there was him, there was Ravel Morrison. There was, Jesse Lingard, of course, Michael Keane. It was a great team. Ryan Tunnicliffe was a favourite of mine. There was a great team there, and he was the one that everyone was like, Paul Pogba. Sort of big debate whether he was going to stay or whether he was going to leave. He played a few games. I remember being at Ellen Road where he played in the Carling Cup there. Came on a couple of times. Didn't really do a lot. And I didn't think he did enough to sort of make you go, okay, he needs to be in the team now. I felt like he was going to be one for the future. Didn't want to wait. Goes to Juve on a free. Comes back several years later, what was it, 6 years later or 5 years later, whatever it is, for 89 million quid, and it's just not really panned out. That first season was probably the highlight, wasn't it? Win a couple of trophies, pretty positive end to the season in Stockholm, and you think, this is so far so good, and it's never really quite lived up to the expectation. We had that purple patch when Ollie came in as caretaker, where he was taking the penalties and he was playing as more or less almost a 10 runner. That midfield trio you had of him, Herrera and Matic, which worked really well. That seems to get the best out of him. But since then, it's just been fits and starts. And his injury record hasn't been great. So, yeah, it does look like it's just going to end without him playing against Crystal Palace. And it's probably for the best, isn't it? I don't know. I just feel like, it's time to move on. Onakome Katsu says, where's James Wilson? I think he means James Wilson. James Wilson scored last night. I think was he at Port Vale? I caught something on the telly and he was getting a goal there. He's another one he's quite young as well, isn't he, James Wilson? He's not that old now. I think he's in his 20s, but just didn't quite happen for him. Loads of debates going on in the chat. And again, people sort of seem now to be more united in the feeling that it is better for Paul Pogba just to move on. There's always been this sort of split in the fan base, I feel, where half the fan base has been sort of pro Paul Pogba, if that's the right term, and the other half have been a bit underwhelmed, and some have just been downright fuming with him. But I now feel like more and more people are going, you know what, this is time to go. There's still a few people who think, maybe Erik Ten Hag comes in and gets the best out of him and convinces him to stay. I don't see it happening. There was another story doing the rounds that apparently he didn't go to City because he feared a backlash from Manchester United fans. Just a bit. But it looks like he could be heading to somewhere like maybe, I think PSG are in for him, and there's talk of Juve trying to get him back. But the most obvious choice seems to be Paris Saint-Germain. And if he goes, if he goes to Paris Saint-Germain and he returns, I won't boo him. I'll probably give him a polite sort of one of them. Maybe. Anyway, leave it there. We've got loads of videos coming up. Of course, we'll have the watch along this weekend with me, Joe. Who's on with us, Joe? Do you know? Watch along this weekend? Joe McGrath. Me, Joe, and Joe McGrath. Oh, hang on a minute. I'm not wrapping up. What am I doing? I forgot the main story. Timber. Jesus wept. What is going on? I've only been doing this for about 9 years. Yes, there it is. Sorry. Alex Bagley just nearly had a fit there because I was about to wrap up without going to the main story that we're going to talk about. Jurriën Timber. It looks like he's about to sign as well, so it's a good job I didn't just walk off without talking about that one, innit? There's a story doing the rounds this morning. I think it's in the Express and a few other papers have got it as well, that Ten Hag's first deal is imminent. Jurriën Timber's agency hint at Manchester United imminent transfer. Deal closing time, I think his agent sent a picture or posted a picture on Instagram of the airport saying deal closing time. Now, we know that United have been linked with him for quite some time. Obviously, he's worked with Erik Ten Hag. He kind of fits the bill for what we need. I think he can play on the right, can't he, Timber? He can play centre-back and on the right-hand side as well. So that is a big plus for him because we've got issues in both those positions. He's young. The price, I think, that's being sort of mooted is one that would fit in with what Manchester United can afford right now. I think we're talking around the 40, 50 million mark, which is about right for a player of that calibre and that age as well. You're not going to get players nowadays for 20 million, really, unless they're past 30 or whatever, or under 18. So the rumours, the stories, the reports, whatever you want to say, are sort of heading towards or indicating, that Jurrien Timber could be heading to Old Trafford soon. Could be Erik Ten Hag's first signing. Would make a lot of sense. He knows him, he's a good player, he's a young player, and he fits a position that we need fitting. He fits 2 positions that we need filling, and he's also affordable. So everything sort of makes sense, but the only trouble is this is Manchester United, and often when things look like they make sense, it doesn't happen. But we'll wait and see what happens. As always, we'll go live or we'll keep you updated if anything does progress on that deal as well. It could be sort of happening any day soon from what we gather there from his agent. He's posting pictures at the airport saying, deal closing time. Jay Frasconi in the super chat says, great job as always, Jay, thank you, despite the fact I nearly forgot the main story. Erik Ten Hag has a long-term project for sure, but hopefully he can change the way United does transfer business immediately and get some respectability back in that department. Yeah, it would be good to see that. It'd be good to see just United this summer getting deals done, getting them done early and getting them done properly as well. Like when I say properly, what that means, I mean none of this sort of weeks and weeks of negotiations that just end with us paying the price that the club wanted. Do you remember when we bought Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Harry Maguire and Dan James in that transfer window? Now you think, okay, those are your targets, you've got him. There's nothing wrong with that. But the way that sort of panned out, it wasn't great because it was like Leicester wanted 80 million plus 5 million in add-ons for Harry Maguire. We're not paying that. We negotiated for 2 weeks. We ended up paying 80 million and 5 million add-ons for Harry Maguire. Crystal Palace wanted 50 million for Aaron Wan-Bissaka. We're not paying that. We negotiated for 2 weeks. We ended up paying 50 million for Aaron Wan-Bissaka. It just seemed a bit farcical. It just seemed like we didn't know what we're doing. Hopefully now, though, with the likes of John Murtagh, Darren Fletcher, Erik Ten Hag, obviously, Ralph Radlick as a consultant. We've got more football people involved in football decisions. From what I'm hearing about Richard Arnold as well, he is sort of delegating more than Ed Woodward did. So he's giving the power to the people that know what they're doing when it comes to football, where Ed Woodward was more hands-on and didn't know what he was doing. He was an investment banker, had no clue about football. You also had Joel Glazer sticking his nose in as well, so it wasn't pretty. But now it seems like Manchester United are acting a little bit more grown up in the transfer market. We'll see what happens, though, because we haven't signed anyone yet, so that'll be the real proof. But the noises are pretty positive, if I'm allowed to be positive about Manchester United. Santa Notch in the chat, says, we can hope the structure is like a football club again. Well, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? Manchester United started acting like a football club, eh? Who'd have thunk it? Right, I will leave it there this time. Thanks to everyone who's got involved in the comments and the chat. Don't forget as well, if you're not doing, subscribe to the channel. We'll put a link in the chat there as well. Hit that subscribe button. We want to get to 700,000 subscribers. With your support, we can do it. We've got loads of good videos coming up. We're going to have the brew later on. We're going to have the watch along this weekend, of course. We've got the preview that's already up for the Crystal Palace game, Manchester United's last game of the season. Thank God. I think we've all had enough, haven't we? I know I have. But we will be looking ahead as well soon towards pre-season, where we'll have a lot to say about that as well, because we're going to be over there. We're going to be over in Australia and Thailand as well, bringing you loads of updates, interviews, all that good stuff. So make sure you are subscribing to Stretford Paddock. I've been Jay. This has been The Paper Talk, live from the studio. Thanks for watching.